called us to govern this province. We ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interest of our people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat U gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat U ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan U op te dra. Sikilele ilizwe lethu labantu balo umisile ukulunga kwipondo lethu Nkosi sikilele iAfrika Qina abantwana bayo kokela inkokeli zayo zinike ukulu iAfrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. You may be seated. Good afternoon and order members. Before we proceed, I would like to remind members about some of the logistical arrangements. Today, we will be using the hybrid model for the sitting of the House. We have honourable members present here in the chamber with the presiding officer and the table staff, and also honourable members participating in the sitting of the House via Microsoft Teams. The chamber have therefore also been connected to Microsoft Teams. Honourable members, I trust that everybody has been connected to participate in the sitting of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament in terms of Rule 1A of the Standing Rules, with all our members in remote attendance by electronic means. Allow me to highlight some of the important directives in this regard. We do have dedicated technical support provided by us today by Mr. Tafsir Abbas. Honourable members, all microphones have been muted. For those honourable members who are participating in the sitting of the House via Microsoft Teams, you are requested to please use the raise hand function of the system where you desire to raise a point of order, and you will be recognized by the presiding officer. When an honourable member present in the chamber wishes to raise a point of order, such honourable member may address the presiding officer as normal, but must mute their mics when they have completed speaking. For the purpose of this sitting via the hybrid model, language translation services are available in all three official languages, Afrikaans, English, and isiXhosa. As ruled by the presiding officer in the sitting of the House on 23 April 2020 via Microsoft Teams, no interjections shall be permitted during the debate. In this regard, I also wish to draw the attention of honourable members to Rule 40 of our standing rules. Honourable members, we are gathered here today to commemorate women, and I am sure we would all agree that we ought to dedicate support to women more frequently and consistently. We will rise to discuss the successes and challenges on the road since 1956. And as we agree and commit greater efforts, may we engage today in unity. Though we rise in our respective colours, let us so serve our rainbow nation. May our debate be constructive and in the best interest of women. Women in our constituencies, our country, and women across the globe. Honourable members, in terms of Rule 147, we will now proceed with the Speaker's debate. I will now recognize the Honourable Speaker, Speaker Masizole Mkasela.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable the Premier of the Western Cape, Mr. Alan Winder, the members of the Executive Council, our cabinet in the Western Cape, honorable members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, the people of the Western Cape, people of South Africa, and the people of the world to join us in various platforms. We are welcoming this opportunity in a very unique way of a hybrid session, Madam Chairperson. And of course, the honorable members who are sitting here with me, and particularly the honorable, the Deputy Speaker, and of course, the honorable the leader of the opposition who happens to share the scarf with me. He actually stole the moment because he thought he was going to be the one wearing the scarf, but I had my scarf first. And I also see the Honorable Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Honorable Minister Andrew Murray is here with us in the chamber. And obviously also the Honorable Maseko who's here in the chamber. I'm particularly acknowledging them here, Madam Chairperson, because this is a hybrid session and they are in the chamber with myself and the Deputy Speaker and of course yourself. Thank you very much. And again, the spirit of this debate, as you have seen in terms of the order paper, this debate is on Women's Day, and we are discussing and debating dignity and rights of women in the Western Cape. Honorable Chairperson, on the 13th of August, 2021, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, under the ably leadership of the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Beverly Schaefer, facilitated the Western Cape Provincial Parliament Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians, that is the CWP Women's Parliament. This groundbreaking event expanded the platform for the Western Cape Women's Parliament to include international speakers and delegates on the program, as well as the Western Cape stakeholders. The theme for the 2021 Western Cape Provincial Parliament, CWP Women's Parliament, was placing the dignity and innate rights of women in the spotlight. This was a perfect theme, and it was befitting of the moment and the occasion of celebrating not only the rights of women, but also the strides made towards protecting the rights and dignity of women in South Africa. And the Western Cape has seen some challenges in this area, and of course, these were articulated extensively during this program. The keynote speeches were delivered by the chairperson of the Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians, and this is the international chairperson of the Commonwealth Women's Parliamentarians, the chairperson of the CWP Africa region, a representative of the National Conference of the State Legislatures in the United States of America, the NCSL, as well as our Western Cape ministers, one for social development, Minister Shana Fernandez, and the Minister of Health, Dr. Noma French Mbombo, who were present during this program and addressed this very august occasion. Honorable Chairperson, the 25 stakeholders representing all districts of the Western Cape, as well as the members of this House and some members of the other parliaments and personnel from various other parliaments in South Africa, and of course, some parliaments in Africa. Together with the members of our CWP branch in this parliament, participated in this beautiful event. Stimulating discussions were held on various topics aimed at furthering the rights of women in the long term by focusing on specific issues, such as the gender remuneration gap. Very exciting deliberations there Madam Chairperson, the gender responsive budgeting and the enrollment of women in STEM. STEM is translated as the science, technology, engineering, and maths programs in the institutions of higher learning. It was a wonderful experience, Madam Chair, the coming together of these women with the sole purpose of advancing dignity and innate rights of women. And I look forward to the continuation of this in this particular debate. This is an opportunity to gather ideas and deliberate on the programs that seek to address the very fundamental challenges that are confronting our women and celebrate great women, current and the previous women leaders and business women, and also women in the civil society organization who are doing amazing stuff, and also women in this parliament and in government. So thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I look forward to exciting debate here today. And of course, in that spirit, I do know that it's going to be a beautiful one. Welcome to the honorable members who are going to debate, and good luck. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and Premier, members of the House Speaker. Thank you very much for hosting this debate. As you've said, last Friday, we were able to do this international parliamentary session, which really was, the aim was really to get our voices across the platform, across the planet, and that theme around placing the dignity on innate rights of women cannot be underestimated. Chairperson, I'm specifically repeating some of my remarks here that I made last Friday because I can't stress enough what I said last Friday. I think it's because of the slow progress of change around women, their rights and their dignity and the dignity in this country. And once again, I stress the word dignity, Chairperson, because I don't believe that people really understand the meaning of that word. Dr. Donna Hicks, the author of the book Dignity, the essential role it plays in resolving conflict, states that dignity is our inherent value and worth as human beings, that everyone is born with it, and that we all have a deep human desire to be treated as someone of value. Why is there so much conflict in the world between nations, in our communities, at work, and even in our personal lives, asks Dr. Hicks. Imagine, she says, what the world would be like if we treated each other as if we mattered, if we all valued each other's dignity. Certainly food for thought, Chairperson. Chair, what has been highlighted by our international speakers is that inequality and gender-based violence that women face on a day-to-day basis is no less evident in developed or more democratic countries, but rather equally prevalent across the world. The United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is a reminder, Chair, that countries must deliver on goals 5 and 16, specifically to achieve gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls, and to promote peaceful and inclusive societies which include responsive, participatory and decision-making at all levels of society. The latest global ranking, as reported by the CPA, shows only 4 countries in the world that have 50% or more women parliamentarians, and interestingly, Chair, not considered to be the most liberal of nations. Rwanda at 61%, Cuba, Bolivia, and the UAE. Just yesterday, a joint statement was issued, signed by more than 20 countries, including the European Union, United States, and the UK, stating a deep worry about Afghan women and girls, their rights to education, their work and freedom of movement, and call on those in positions of power and authority across Afghanistan to guarantee their protection. The CPA has asked that we in this Parliament be one of the first in South Africa to start the road to becoming a gender-sensitive Parliament. And so I'll ask my colleagues on both sides of this House that we take this proposal forward. It will be a process as it will involve collating and publishing gender disaggregated data that we know as legislators whether our budgets are really making a difference. But ultimately, it will be in line with international best practice. I want to, Chair, pay tribute to all the women of the Western Cape out there, to those that wake up each and every day with little hope of escaping the situation they find themselves in. We as legislators and parliamentarians have a great deal of work still to do for you. Chair, in closing, I'd like to end off with the excerpt of the poem Still I Rise by Maya Angelou for all those women who feel trapped by their own circumstances, and I quote, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like the moons and the suns with the certainty of tides, just like the hope springing high, still I'll rise. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise." Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I now recognize Honourable Baku Vos, who is joining us online.
Alibongwe.
Member Baku Vos, are you there? One last call. Member Baku Vos, you may proceed.
Honorable Chair. Honorable Chairperson.
Who is addressing the chair?
It's Honorable Mvimbi. I just got an indication that Honorable Baku is just experiencing network problems.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mvimbi. We will then proceed with the Honourable Minister Andrew Murray.
Madam Chairperson, as we commemorate National Women's Month, we understand that the plight of women and the girl child is not only bound to the month of August. The COVID-19 pandemic and its subsequent lockdown regulations worsened this plight and once again highlighted the urgency with which we, as a whole of society, are to redress its root causes, not only its symptoms, 365 days a year. This collaborative effort is needed to progress gender equality as a human right, to empower women, but more importantly, to stop the marginalization of women and girls through accepted societal norms. Since sworn in, I have prioritized advancing the agenda of women in sport through the Department of Culture Affairs and Sport. In 2019, I addressed affiliated federations through the Western Cape Provincial Sport Confederations, Women's Commission, and the Department of Culture and Affairs Sport Women's Desk, calling for a safety and dignity plan to be incorporated into a Western Cape Women in Sport policy, the first of its kind in South Africa. Following the various engagement with these valued stakeholders, each federation and by extension local clubs on grassroots level was tasked with including women in sport programs to their respective annual plans and providing inputs on a simple 10-point plan of action to create a more enabling environment for women and girls to participate in sport across the province and at higher levels of performance. While these engagements initially gained momentum to achieve our collaborative desired outcomes, COVID-19 and national lockdown regulations delayed its progress. However, as we contain, adopt and recover in the Western Cape, the Department has remained committed to our gender equity priority and proactively responded to the unprecedented circumstances with innovative solutions. Throughout the pandemic, we have kept the lines of communication open as Department of Culture and Affairs Sport hosted various virtual and hybrid engagements to boost our support to federations and to increase their resilience during this difficult time. The programs hosted on created virtual platforms included, amongst others, the National Policy Development, the Provincial Action Plan Implementation, the Gender-Based Violence Workshop, Women in Leadership Workshop, Gender Equity, Mental and Physical Well-Being. To meaningfully change the lived experience for women and the girl child, the development of the Provincial Action Plan for Women in Sport is our focus for the 2021-2022 financial year. As we continue to consult with sport federations and partners, the desired workshop deliverable outcomes for implementation across the Western Cape include increased participation in sport, access to facilities, safeguarding policy, capacity building of female administrators and coaches, media and sponsorship. As we now commemorate Women's Day 2021, I'm happy to update you as members on our Women in Sport for Safety and Dignity Plan and to note its draft in consultation with our valued stakeholders to be adopted and launched on the 8th of March 2022 on International Women's Day. The launch will serve as the culmination of the upcoming monthly webinars to commence in September 2021. Each webinar will deal with relevant themes to progress the draft plan with experts in the field advising on matters that may transpire from our federations through our ongoing engagements. These themes include, but are not limited to, the status update on sporting sector, physical and mental well-being during unprecedented times, the Western Cape Government for Dignified Sporting Experiences for Women in Sport, which will focus on the Western Cape Government Safety Plan and the DCA's role in bringing it into fruition. We also had a virtual Women's Day program for our department staff as we raise awareness on gender mainstreaming and promoting gender equity in a work environment. We have to engage our internal staff who actions our service delivery footprint in our communities across the province as empowerment starts at home. Gender equity is not only about balancing quota systems, but also incorporating support systems to justifiably place competent women at the table of decision makers to disrupt the patriarchal institutions still at play. So to equalize the playing field from the perspective of a woman. As much as we need women in positions of influence, we need more men on women's commissions and advocacy groups, taking the lead in applied women face as daily experiences. With democratically diverse representation, we'll have more gender-neutral policies, more sensitive to issues affecting women and girls to facilitate easy access to a safer sporting environment in which all can flourish equally. This year, we nationally commemorate Women's Month under the theme, Generation Equality, Realizing Women's Rights for an Equal Future. The concept of generation equality is a global campaign and links South Africa to global efforts to achieve gender equality by 2030. As the leading province in the Western Cape, we have laid a strong foundation and together we must continue to do the hard yards in establishing sustainable equality to stop discrimination that continues to undermine the rights of women in our society. We need more opportunities for women in sport so that we can lead in addressing the plight that other women and the rest of society face. One urgent matter we are addressing is the gender pay gap. Through the Netball World Cup 2023, we as a collective will see to the pay gap in sports. While compensation for women has improved over the past decade, the gap still exists. Men's sports receive vastly more media coverage, TV licenses, and sponsorship deals. According to the World Economic Forum 2021's Global Gender Gap Report of 30th March 2021, the time for the gender gap to close grew by 36 years in a space of just 12 months, all as a result of COVID-19. We do not have time to rest. En in goeie Afrikaans, ons kan nie op ons lauwere rus nie. As the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sports, we are here to assist, facilitate and equip where we can, but we need a whole of society approach, and I wholeheartedly thank all our federations and valued partners for joining us in this very important collaborative effort. In closing, I bring to your memory the words of Nelson Mandela, and I quote, "As long as outmoded ways of thinking prevent women from making a meaningful contribution to society, progress will be slow. As long as a nation refuses to acknowledge the equal role of more than half of itself, it is doomed to failure." I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We now move over to Honourable Van Vogel. Are you there?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Good afternoon, honourable members. Deputy Speaker, we gather here today to celebrate the bravery of the 1956 generation. One of the leaders of the 1956 march, Franz Barth, who was imprisoned for years after the protest, recollected in her autobiography titled "My Spirit is Not Burned." The particular challenges that Black African women faced under apartheid
Have we lost Honourable Van Vogel? Honourable Van Vogel, are you there?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Ten tijde van aanloop tot die protesaksie moes hulle snags in afsonderlike gebiede ingaan om oor die probleme te praat, oor hoë huur, geen kosgeld en beperkte pasboekies waarsonder hulle nie kon werk nie. Sy vertel van 'n tragiese uitsmyt van 'n weduwee na haar man se dood. Vroue is weggejaag of gedwing om weer te trou om net 'n huis te kon bekom. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, toe die 20.000 vroue met armsvol petisie na die eerste minister Strydom by die Uniegebou opdag, was dit nie net oor paswette nie, maar oor vroue se vele probleme. Baie van daai probleme in die versoekskrifte bestaan vandag nog. Byvoorbeeld is die vergoedingsgaping steeds groot tussen swart werkers en die res. Tussen ander groepe van die vroue, word die vroue die minste betaal. Dit wys net dat die demokratiese regering die bevryding van swartes en vroue in besonder moet versnel. Die Weskaap staan vierkant in die pad van vroueontwikkeling in die private sektor sowel as die openbare sektore. Daar is ook erge ongelykhede in hulle vergoeding. Ons vra die egbare premier om voorkeur te gee aan die skep van werksgeleenthede van vroue in senior poste en van voorste geleenthede sodat daar versnelling in van sulke vroue in aangewese groepe en in senior bestuur geplaas word. Die voorgestelde landelike en stedelike uitsettings in die provinsie het 'n afbreekende uitwerking op vroue, veral vroue wat hulle waardigheid en veiligheid prysgee. 'n Pensionaris, Auntie Sabina Oktober van Indingo Farm in Swellendam, is uitgesit en is uitgesit en dit is in die vroueparlement van 2019 bespreek en tot vandag toe kon hierdie wetgewer nog nie seker maak dat hierdie probleme tot oplossing of uitvoering kom nie. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, we have to take over the baton and continue to fight for the creation of South Africa that is free of racism, sexism, homophobia and capitalist exploitation. We must destroy gender inequalities and create opportunity for women to flourish. The first step is to work together to defeat COVID-19. The Western Cape is an epicenter contributing over 27% of COVID-19 cases to the nation. The provincial government is not doing enough to ensure that people in the poor working class in communities register for the vaccine. The provincial government must urgently devise strategies to deal with this vaccine hesitancy. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Van Voorgel. I understand that Honourable Harlan has tendered his apologies, but in the spirit of today's debate, I see that Honourable Baku Force is here. So before we continue with the program, as it runs, I'm going to give Honourable Baku Force her opportunity to deliver her speech.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, ngivumele namhlanje ndibhotise kuwo wonke amanina kwimpondo lentshona koloni nakwilizwe jikelele. Sidibana namhlanje ukuze sixoxe imicimba ejongene namanina kule nyanga yethu. Inyanga yamanina lixesha lokuba ilizwe lijongane neemeko kunye nobunzima amanina ajongene nabo kwaye sibonakalise uvelwano. This year marked the 65th-year anniversary of the 1956 Women's March to Union Buildings. This year's theme for Women's Month is the year of Charlotte Maxeke, realizing women's rights. It is the second year of the COVID-19 pandemic, which negatively impacted on the health, gender equality, education, food security, and the economy. Women are also victims of the second pandemic of gender-based violence. This year also marked the 26th anniversary of the 1995 Beijing Platform for Action, which flagged 12 key areas where urgent action was needed to ensure greater equality and opportunities for women and men, girls and boys. The 12 Beijing critical areas of concern included women and poverty, education and training of women, women and health, violence against women, women and armed conflict, and women and the economy, amongst others. The Western Cape is not immune from any of these challenges. For instance, women in the province suffer as the gang wars destroys their families. At this point, I am reminded of the painful death of 26-year-old Shamima Doherty, who died while shielding her children from a hail of bullets when ruthless gangsters opened fire near their home in Lavender Hill in April this year. Our thoughts and prayers are with her parents and family. This government ineptness in the fight against crime and gangsterism is failing women in the province. The Western Cape is also the epicenter for GBV and femicide, and yet are no special programs and budget to combat the scourge. The Victim Empowerment Program, the Sanitary Dignity Project, and funding of shelters for victims of GBV don't come close to addressing the above areas of concern. Le budget urhulumente ayikhuphayo ukulwa ne-GBV incinci kakhulu somlomo, futhi iminyaka simemelela ukuba lo rhulumente makavule ezinye ii-shelters kwingingqi apho abantu bakuthi bahlala khona, kuba kulapho ii-victim ezininzi zihlala khona. The provincial government needs to improve on its effort, so create conducive environment to enable women to take control of their lives and to address structural oppression and gender oppression, patriarchy, and sexism. The ANC in its internal documents noted that gender-based violence and femicide are now national priorities. We have to lead the fight against the remaining patriarchal attitude that caused it. The objectification of women, their role in family, discrimination in society, economy, and politics. The ANC government had massive progress since 1995 on women's rights, ownership of housing, access to services, completing high school and tertiary education. Women's burden of care for children has been massively supported through child support grants. Moreover, the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization reported that while South Africa may be scoring below the global average of 30% of women pursuing science, technology, engineering and mathematics careers, the country was still leading in sub-Saharan Africa. According to UNESCO, sub-Saharan Africa accounts for about 28% of women in STEM careers. South Africa have the highest share of female graduates in sub-Saharan Africa at 32% and even more female ICT graduates at 38%. Majority of women are poor, unemployed. We need rigorous program to address women poverty and unemployment. Even those who are employed, majority of them are in lowest paying jobs. While women and girls have better access to healthcare, contraception, as well as enable women to control their own reproduction. Somlomo ziyaxhalabisa ingxelo zokuba abantwana abansukela kwiminyaka elishumi ubuncinci bakuluhlu lwabo bakhulelwa kwiphondo laseGauteng. It is a cause of serious concern that nearly 20,000 children under the age of 20 fell pregnant in Gauteng. This is a challenge to MECs of health, education and social development to intensify their programs to prevent children and teenage pregnancies. Xa ndizawuvala Somlomo ndifuna ukucela ukuba uzame kangangoko ukuba indibano ezifana nale mazingapheleli ekubeni zii-talk shows. You owe this parliament an update on the progress that has made on the implementation of the resolution of the 2019 Women's Parliament, particularly on gender-based violence and femicide and challenges facing women in rural areas. Not only have we delayed with implementation of resolution, but we have also failed to ensure that we create a Western Cape that is free of gender inequality and ensure safety of women and children. Under our watch, women are sexually harassed by their superiors in government department, and we turn a blind eye as HODs, MECs, and other senior managers unite to cover up and protect perpetrators for sexual harassment in the workplace. Somlomo, I implore you, if you care about the plight of women in the workplace, to approach the Commission for Gender Equality to investigate the handling of the case against Mr. Farrell Payne by the Premier and the Department of Transport and Public Works. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bakubaku Force. I now move over to Honourable Botha.
Deputy Speaker, on the 9th of August 1956, women faced many different challenges than what we face today. This could have been the most difficult period for them, but as one, they decided to mimic the story of David and Goliath to take on the government, the proverbial giant. Today may feel like an extension because of the terrifying 2020-2021 year. Mothers lost their children, in some cases multiple children. Wives lost husbands, this without the traditional last goodbyes, without seeing a body, without holding a hand. Our challenges are different, but similarities lies in how we rise. We have made significant strides as we commemorate this 65th anniversary. We see progress in lawmaking and employment equity, with more women serving in high-ranking positions than before. We see a growth in access to education. According to Stats SA, we have achieved a gender parity ratio of 0.99 during 2019, where one is considered full equality. Well-welcomed indicators of some success. But women still face many deep societal challenges, challenges that hold potential to regress on success. Yesterday, News 24 reported over 23,000 teenage pregnancies recorded over 1 year, of which almost 1,000 were between the ages of 10 and 14 in Gauteng. This poses serious social, economic, physical, and psychological hazards by which we experience an increased likelihood of dropouts and unemployment, absent fathers, and single female-headed households, a serious mismatch in responsibilities and upbringing of our children. These are fights faced every day by too many and require a commitment to intervention, services, and resources, uplifting programs. Deputy Speaker, at 18 June 2021, the Provincial Department of Social Development has supported close to 110,000 female learners with over 700,000 sanitary pads. Many lack basic resources like these, which keeps them from school. But since the launch of the Sanitary Dignity Project, dignity is being re-established. As GBV was quickly considered a shadow pandemic, the department extended support to over 5,000 women this year, knowing the challenges faced in seeking help as threats are too close to home. The structural barriers that women face with regards to substance and physical abuse are different to male counterparts. In partnership with NGOs, the department secures early intervention and in-care facilities to women with their children, special care for adolescent girls, and aftercare support. The Masakizizwe bursary program prioritizes women, youth, students with disabilities, and learners, especially from rural communities, when awarding bursaries to better futures. And so, I pay tribute to women who rise despite these adversities. It takes courage to seek help and succeed. I want to pay homage to the resilience of a wife, mother, sister, daughter, who have suffered great loss because of this pandemic in particular, but has to continue with life in the work that they fill. Deputy Speaker, we no longer carry passes today or are restricted based on the color of our skin or sex, but we face social resistance and setbacks that require active and intentional redress. In marriage, Deputy Speaker, a 65-year anniversary is celebrated with a traditional gift of a blue sapphire, in Spain with platinum, and in France, rosewood. Deputy Speaker, precious, valuable representations of success. And so we ask ourselves, can we champion our support to women with a similar tone? The 1956 group of women taught us resilience, perseverance, and to continue through the struggle we face. We are not fully recognized, but as women, we continue to be resolute in the struggle of recognition.
Honourable Butcher, you there?
Deputy Speaker, can you hear me? I don't know why it went off. Deputy Speaker, as a woman who has also been tried and tested, who have loved and lost during this very difficult pandemic period, I want to call on all women in this province to rise, to be resilient, to unite, and to continue the work of women started by the group of women in 1956. With this speech, I pay tribute to those partners in my sisterhood whose strength I could draw from. Those who have carried me, bloodline and no bloodline, female and male, I value you. Deputy Speaker, I pledge to continue to be that woman who does not become an obstacle to another woman to not achieve success, but choose to remain that woman who holds the stepladder for another woman to climb in order to achieve success. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Butcher. I now call on Honourable Christians.
Deputy Speaker, as the ACDP, we honour the women of this province, we honour the women of this nation during this month of August. A month to set aside for our grandmothers, our mothers, our sisters and daughters is hardly enough time to honour their courage and their strength. It affords me great joy to have this opportunity to celebrate women. I celebrate women. I celebrate their strength during hardship, their strength to rise above circumstances, their strength to make the best of their given situation, and their strength to be the best that they can be. I celebrate the joy of their joy. I celebrate the happiness of their happiness and their strength when they're in tears. Deputy Speaker, I celebrate spirit-filled women empowered by God who make a difference in the lives of communities, countries, and in the entire world. I celebrate women who have fallen in love with the Lord Jesus Christ, who walk with a path and is a child of God. I celebrate the power of women who prostrate themselves before Almighty God in prayers of adoration and intercession. I also want to take this time and opportunities to celebrate Dr. Suzanne Vosloo, the first female heart surgeon in South Africa, who in this very month, we honor women, is heavily criticized for her views on the vaccinations against COVID-19. What a shame. I share the pain of women in love-starved marriages and victims of gender-based violence. I celebrate women who rise after they have fallen, who through sheer self-will refuse to remain in the gutter. I celebrate women whose hands are open to help, who feed others when they feed themselves, who dress others when they dress themselves. I celebrate women who hold strategic and influential positions in boardrooms, in the lecture halls, in the factory floor and hospital halls. I celebrate women. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. I now call on Honourable Murray.
Speaker, let's admit it. Since 1994, South Africa has been competing with other countries in the world to be crowned the sex capital. Sex for offenders and women abusers, even baby rapists. And you know what? South Africa won gold. And this failed state carry those medals with pride, even giving discount on jail sentences for those found guilty of rape and murder. It's been reported that 7 women were murdered daily on average in South Africa between 2015 and 2020. This is the sad and heartbreaking reality of a demoralized society. From the minute a girl is born in South Africa, she lives in fear of being raped or being killed. Women in South Africa are treated as punching bags by men who consider them mere incubators for their fatherless kids. 37.6% of households in the Western Cape are headed by women. This must stop. It's women who brought us glory at the Olympic Games, not men. The worth and our perception of the worth of a woman must be revolutionized. And I can assure all women in South Africa, mark my word, if the Freedom Front Plus should succeed in getting a free and independent Western Cape, their rights will be protected 2,000% more than what is the case now. Speaker, currently women, even in management positions, are living under constant threat of losing their full-time employment if they don't get vaccinated. This at a time when medical experts themselves are still contradicting each other about the efficacy of the vaccine. Women have heard all of today's speeches before. We pity them, but we do not protect them because we in the Western Cape don't have the power to protect our women. Speaker, we need to include women development in the province's Western Cape Economic Recovery Plan. We need to do that and protect our unemployed mothers. They will only be free if the Western Cape becomes free. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I now recognize Honourable Philander.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. In my contribution to this debate today, I rise to create awareness in supporting security of all women in this modern day. To be secure means to be free from danger or threat, to experience greater levels of certainty, safety, and an assured future. We could thus argue that where we place a woman or the environment in which she finds herself will greatly affect her security. Deputy Speaker, during Women's Month last year, our country adopted the long-awaited Resolution 1325, which aimed to affirm this. Security and peace efforts are more sustainable with women. Women considered as equal partners in this development. Deputy Speaker, this means that the world needs women. The adoption of the resolution followed a year of turmoil and where GBV was also termed the second pandemic. And so some would argue that it thus could not come at a better time. At the same time, others may argue that it is way too late given that we have reached a point in which violence against women is considered infectious. In addition to this, countries like Liberia and Rwanda have adopted such plans 10 years ago. Regardless, it is clear that for greater security in this day, we must empower women, secure women. The ISS report, which I draw from, shows that in South Africa, 43% of its parliamentarians are women, 31% of the defense force, and 37.2% of police personnel are women at both tactical and strategic levels. Speaker, on Women's Day this year, I had the privilege to engage with the Montrose Park Neighborhood Watch in Mitchell's Plain, a group of 30 women under the stewardship of Ms. Bertha Abrams. I reiterate, a group of women that decided to no more will innocent kids be gunned down and their community be held hostage by criminal elements. I acknowledge and salute the brave and courageous women across the Western Cape. The bold and fearless women that are not afraid to face the barrel of a gun when it comes to protecting their neighborhood. We have surely made strides, even without the adoption, but we are not yet there. During May this year, Forbes reported the following reasons why the gender pay gaps is still with us and will remain so until 2059. Deputy Speaker, surely we ought to say, not in my lifetime. Firstly, their analysis shows a slow progress in the gender pay gap since 2015. It, however, shows a narrow difference of 2% between men and women in when accounting for advantages of education and experience. But as years pass, this gap compounds, and so this gap also fails to account for those who lack these opportunities to education and experience. Moreover, the study shows that for 60% of women who experience this gap is due to their own inhibition in undertaking their caregiving responsibility, while 40% relates to businesses or employers' perception of this responsibility attributed to women. Deputy Speaker, a tricky situation indeed, but what becomes clear is that there is most certainly a need for deliberate intervention. For women to take up space and for employment bodies to pull the plug on often subtle yet discriminating policies. Yes, many, and rightfully so, argue that pay gaps are but a mere part of establishing greater security, but it certainly enables. Deputy Speaker, it sets a record straight. For example, a woman dependent on a partner who, according to SA GBV stats, may pose a risk to her safety. Jane Addams thus accordingly said, "The good we secure for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secured for all of us and incorporated into our common life. When women are secure, they have freedom. They reach out to opportunity, and so we must recognize women equally. There is power in parity. There will be power in parity, and we must create power in parity. I wish to welcome some findings in the Western Cape. I note the level of female employees within our provincial structures. There are over 31,000 more female employees than men during times when finding a job proves tougher than ever. that on middle management level, there are over 400 more women than men, whilst at senior management level, 44% of roles are filled by women. I want to encourage women to keep on taking up this space. In the DA-led Cape Winelands District Municipality, Executive Mayor Dr. Elna von Schlicht, a shining example and leading from the front in her approach and drive relating to COVID-19 recovery on a high performance level. Deputy Speaker, we have heard of many stories and figures to represent the challenges and successes made by women and or for women. Theoretical analysis of the place of women. But what truly matters is ensuring that we continue realizing the value women empowerment networks and the value initiatives hold, the security we create for them and their returns to society. Let's consider the power of parity and how it creates a secure future for all. Let's be intentional about greater strides, as intentional as women who walked before us that led to this commemoration and the celebration of equal rights for women then and especially today. Speaker, it is a given that limiting basic freedoms for women and girls will have devastating consequences for generations to come. We no longer have a choice. We owe it to our future generations. Deputy Speaker, I stand on the shoulders of the Helen Suzmans, the Helen Zills, the Antibokkie Klaasens, the Rukeya Meyers, the Hetta Sylvesters, and many more that teach us it is never about us, it is for the cause. May we recognize our individual freedom. May we as a nation recognize our human fallibility, but may we grow and may we realize the power of a woman sooner. May the nation, not only 1 month in a year, but around the clock, endeavor to recognize the greatness of women. History has shown us, Deputy Speaker, that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life on its own. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Philander. I now recognise Honourable Bruncase.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The Al-Jamaa is deeply concerned over many flaws in the Maintenance Act, which fails to deliver justice to women, children, and the elderly. We support calls made by social justice activists for the rights of women that amendments be made to the Maintenance Act, which will speed up the process of applications and deliver a fair and just rulings to especially women and children. Government has failed to respond or act on the unequal and ineffective maintenance system. We call on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament to approach National Parliament to consider amendments to the Maintenance Act. The current Maintenance Act is discriminatory towards women. We question why men receive a travelling allowance and a relief payment to attend court hearings on maintenance matters, whereas women are deprived of this stipend. They must pay their own travelling costs. Women who attend maintenance hearings suffer loss of jobs and loss of income. This is insulting to the dignity of women who must beg the fathers of the children to pay maintenance. Women pay 50 Rand travelling costs to hearings, which allow the father to pay pittance towards the maintenance of the children. Our courts are clogged with maintenance applications resulting in children reaching maturity without benefiting from any maintenance. There are also no timelines in place to ensure effective applications of maintenance. Women are also not receiving the necessary assistance from maintenance staff when making applications. They are often bullied to accept pittance for maintenance. As a province, where is the oversight? Where is the oversight at the maintenance courts? There are reports of lack of resources, staff shortages, and proper investigations in maintenance matters. These are causing unnecessary delays and postponement on matters. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bruncase. I now recognise Honourable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Let me appreciate the platform and join all other members in celebrating the strides made to this point to legally remove women exploitation and acknowledge the baby steps of diversity our democracy has ushered, with men as husbands, as fathers, and as leaders standing side by side with ourselves as women counterparts to fight for a gender equality South Africa. As the ANC, we join this Women's Parliament discussion with serious reservations and pessimism, as both as members in this House and women in particular, we can collectively declare immense burden experienced by women in our country and province, especially compounded by COVID-19. The burden of this pandemic to women have not assisted efforts to equalize and drive a non-sexist society forward, particularly given the stubborn political economy of the apartheid economic infrastructure. Such has been confirmed by studies done during the advent of the pandemic of the pre-existing conditions that have exacerbated the vulnerability of developing economies such as South Africa, particularly those outside of the economic mainstream, which is women and youth, including the recent data of the quarterly labor force survey from Stats SA indicated a grim picture, in particular in as far as youth is concerned and young women in particular. It is also important to refer and remind this House that in this similar debate as the ANC, we raised the notion of economics of GBV then in 2019. It is interesting that to date, recently with the report by the Western Cape Police Ombudsman, it revealed that human and other resources to sustain the police victim empowerment program and ensure victims receive all the services are lacking. We call on the safety plan and all its efforts to resource and ensure a working ecosystem to respond effectively against a GBV in our province. Let us remind this House that we are still few days to go in wrapping up the Women's Month as a constant reminder that our past is interwoven in our present, and our present is an indicator of our future. Women as an add-in we must be looking for women as an add-in, but also ensure that they steer the institutions of patriarchy and its toxic masculinity away. An economy that has been designed with a white male continues to be the lived experience of today's economies, and Western Cape provincial economy is no exception. Women's dignity and their rights, Somlomo, are both a qualitative indicator, but not only that, their numbers must cause a stir to create a new economic design and architecture that will have all what we have agreed being an inclusive economy with business modeling and value chains that enable participation of women. Such inclusivity must be intentional. It must also be time-bound. We consider that the ILO has asked and indicated to us a question about the price of economic exclusion, and they've undertaken an investigation on the price of economic exclusion of women with disabilities in the workspace and general macroeconomic cost. And with their data limitations, they reported that in Africa, macroeconomic losses are between 3.1% of the GDP in Malawi, of about $99 million, and 7% of 2006 GDP in South Africa, which is about 17.8 billion in US dollars. Can this province and our CWP branch, Deputy Speaker, also help us to ensure that a study of this nature is done in our province and use the findings to steer gender equality agenda to the main basis of our oversight and financial accountability work? The report we have as the ANC raised consistently in the House regarding inequality realities, particularly the stark income inequality, must lay as an indictment to us as the generation of legislators, so long such a reality persists, that we must soldier on to fight the system. Business Tech recently reported an article on the South Africa's middle class that is in trouble, impacted severely by COVID-19, wherein that for those with a take-home of more than 20,000 monthly, their total debt to annual income ratio is 152%, as they spend over 60% of their net income on repaying debt. Maklake calls on all of us that this work is not for ourselves. We must kill the spirit of self and do not live above our people, but live with them. And we must rise, and as we rise, we must bring someone with us. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable Minister Mayor.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Honourable Speaker and Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable members of the Provincial Cabinet, the Honourable leaders of the official opposition, Honourable members of the legislature. I rise today to participate in the Speaker's debate on Women's Day 2021. I do so by presenting to you the stories of 6 remarkable women who have crossed my path over the past 2 years. But let me firstly also express my thanks and appreciation for all the participants that spoke in this debate. I've listened very carefully and I'm inspired by the stories and the comments and the speeches in this debate, in line with what the opening remarks of the speaker of this debate. And I want to congratulate this debate taking place here today. And so I have remarkable stories of women who have not allowed their circumstances to define whom they are. Remarkable because they have grabbed every opportunity they came across as a stepping stone to create their own opportunities for themselves and for others. But Honourable Deputy Speaker, charity begins at home. And so I would like to salute all women in this legislature, all those women who represented their respective political parties in this legislature since 1994, long before us. They all made a contribution to this province. I salute all women, speakers of this legislature. I salute all those who held the positions before and currently as deputy speakers. Also, women ministers since 1994. They have all contributed in building this institution. I salute all our women heads of departments, past and present, and all those who are serving currently and past in public entities here in the Western Cape. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I want to salute our women in this province for building resilient communities. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the first person that I want to celebrate today is Bereen Sols. After completing school, Bereen Sols from Teslasdal in the Himalayan Arda Valley in Hermanus in the Overberg region, joined Hamilton Russell Vineyard in February 2021 as an au pair at the age of 19. She soon moved to an administrative position and quickly got involved in the much more complicated administration linked to wine exports, such as labeling and the warehousing of the estate wines. 15 years later, Anthony Hamilton Russell offered to assist her with the opportunity to own her own wine business. With the expertise and assistance of Hamilton Russell Vineyards winemaker Emil Ross and the Hamilton Russell Vineyards team, Sols focused her production on Pinot Noir, as the climate and soil is the best for this cultivar. She named her wine Tesla Dal, honoring her story of her family. Today, Bereen continues to grow her wines, now also producing a Chardonnay, and she is doing outstanding business. And both the Deputy Speaker of this House and the current Premier have met her and knows her story. Today in this House, we celebrate the story. The second woman is Tannie Poppy. The rooster cook queen Tannie Poppy van Ast comes from the Karoo town of Laingsburg and has become a national treasure for a lovely personality and delicious roosterbrood, a local delicacy made of dough roasted on an open fire. Tannie Poppy started a roadside roosterbrood stand to earn an income and won the hearts of passers-by through the Karoo. It was not long before she became famous, and she appeared on lifestyle television shows, in magazines, in articles, and even a documentary. Her supporters even included a group of Italian cyclists who ended up inviting her to Italy. Today, a plane is named after Tannie Poppy in Laingsburg. Because Tannie Poppy went to Italy, the plane is called Tannie Poppy Piazza, plane in Italian language. We celebrate Tannie Poppy from the Karoo. Yesterday, we posted her photo in the office of the Western Cape Ministry of Agriculture in Wall Street in Cape Town. We honor and salute Tani Poppy. Natasha Ioannis, she started the Garden of Hope in Mitchell's Plain 5 years ago when she was diagnosed with colon cancer. She's familiar to Member of Parliament Ricardo Mackenzie, the Premier of the Western Cape, and Minister Albert Fritz. She needed to eat fresh vegetables as the cancer caused her to feel weak and tired. She could not afford to buy her own vegetables. She did not work and therefore did not have the money. In her own words, she had nothing. There was a dumping site behind the house which she had been watching, liaising with the community and her husband, and she asked them to convert it into a vegetable garden. After liaising and negotiating with the city of Cape Town, they agreed. They got the land, and with the support of my department, they converted this dumping ground into a community vegetable garden. It has now become her passion. She now teaches the community to grow their own vegetables, and she does this for the love of agriculture. Natasha Love, small-scale farmer. Natasha Love hails from Ebenezer in the Matsikama region in the West Coast. Natasha farms on 2 hectares. She produces Chenin Blanc grapes. The wine grapes are also sold to Cederberg Cellar. The wine is produced, bottled, and exported to Sweden. With the support of the Western Cape Department of Agriculture, she was able to establish her vineyards. She currently has 6,000 vines on 2 hectares. Ingrid Lestrada. In March 2017, Ingrid Lestrada assumed the current role as director of Middelpos Farm in Malmesbury and established Inspire Children of Youth, a non-profit organization. Ingrid Lestrada is a bronze medalist in the 2016 Commonwealth Judo Games and 4-time South African judo champion, and currently holds an LLB qualification. She teaches 47 rural farm children judo to help them feel safe, motivated to stay in school, improve their school marks, and inspire their parents to drink more responsibly. She helps 13 farm families to use the resources on the farm to break their generational cycle of poverty. Her main work is to develop strategy, fundraise, implement, and market the activities geared towards rural children, youth, and women at Middelpos. Alison van der Walt is a qualified psychologist specializing in industrial psychology, and she is the manager of the Genesis Hub in Friedeburg in the West Coast. I had the opportunity to visit it about 3 weeks ago. She has 16 years experience in skills development, talent management, and leadership. Genesis Hub is a safe place for youth where they do not only learn a technical skill in a special area, but also learn to develop all areas of life. Focus areas include urban farming, aquaponics, digital 4th industrial revolution skills, such as coding, drone training, sanitary pad production, cutting, measuring, and trimming, and the culinary academy. She described her team as an amazing team, and therefore the Genesis Hub is making magic. Teamwork makes the dream work, she says. Deputy Speaker, the battle of gender equality will only be substantially advanced when more men become champions for social change and gender equity. This is the role men should take up in society, in this legislature, in the cabinet, in government, and in the corporate sector, and in the decision-making structures of society, as honorable members have indicated during this debate. Becoming champions of change and gender equity requires men to join women and become some. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now recognise Speaker Mkasela.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I just want to firstly appreciate the contribution by the honorable members. I think, Honorable Deputy Speaker, what we have seen here, it's exactly what women debates should be like. That the focus should be on the practical attempts to address challenges confronting women. So we've heard that, and we've heard the honorable members highlighting practical examples on some of the challenges and some of the great examples of success. And of course, we have also had some of the areas where we are found wanting. And I think that is the kind of debate I anticipated, which I'm very grateful that the honorable members have delivered on that expectation. Honorable Deputy Speaker, you have said it yourself in your own address that much as we intend to do work in addressing challenges of women, but we need to be practical in our interventions. And that then suggests that even the Women's Parliament that took place, it cannot just be business as usual. The approach of Women's Parliament in the 6th term of Parliament, we began to deal with the issue of what then happens on the resolutions. Because Women's Parliament take place and then there are recommendations that get to be made by stakeholders and delegates. We have then said in this year, unlike what we did in 2019 where the Parliament took place, but the resolutions or recommendations, there was not a proper follow-up to deal with them. Hence, it was proper that the CWP lead this program, but that yourself as the Deputy Speaker is able to table a resolution in this House. And I do hope and really implore the honorable members to support the resolution when it is tabled in this House, especially on the areas that are within the mandate of the Western Cape Executive and the areas that are practical in terms of seeing tangible, impactful interventions. Not simply table these because we want to table them, but we need to see outcomes in terms of what we table. And I also appreciate, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the approach that the CWP seeks to take. The executive and the leadership of the CWP in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, the one that seeks to take this out to the districts, to the communities in the Western Cape, because that kind of approach, it then deals with the Parliament as the representative of the people, instead of Parliament for itself as Parliament. It cannot be correct that we sit here, we debate these issues, but only for us. It must be that the issues that the members of Parliament deal with, especially with this very important sector, and that is women, that we take these issues to ordinary women who many of them are not able to connect as we are sitting here because they need to have money to connect because data is expensive in South Africa. But then the question is, what do you choose, bread, butter, or data? And the answer is they will choose bread and butter. I know this because going around this province, looking at what women have to deal with, it is always those women who have nothing, absolutely nothing on their table, who need our voice, and they need to hear from us, and we need to fight for them as members of this Parliament. And I do appreciate, because I heard it here, that members are not speaking from the position of ignorance, but they are speaking on the position of strength because members are grounded in their constituencies. I have heard our male members speaking here, but I just want to also appreciate the female speakers who spoke. Honorable Marais, I heard you when you spoke, and I also appreciate that to touch on the issues of your portfolio. But equally, it is important to highlight the challenges that we see. I was heartbroken because I watched the Olympics this year, as I've been watching, but particularly this year, when the winners came back, we did nothing to appreciate the successes, but also the work that they've done as ambassadors of this country. Just a thank you. Just a thank you. And it would be important if the members of this House were to say, I'm giving 20 rands, I'm giving 5 rands, to give bonus to those women. Because those are the celebrities, those are the ambassadors who have taken this country and its flag to the global stage and brought back what we all celebrated as victory. Now, I wish in our practical intervention that we'll remember those. Thank you, Honorable Marais, for highlighting some of the great successes that you have seen and you led in your area of portfolio. But we've also heard Honorable Van Vochen, some of the areas that highlighted as challenges, and I do hope that the honorable members in the executive will be able to address some of those. Honorable Bagubago Force, Madam Deputy Speaker, was specific about a particular issue. And I do want to say, Mama, ndivile laa nto ubuyithetha mhlonitshwa. Ndiza ke into yokubana umphathiswa okanye aba baphathiswa bachaphazelekayo bazilandele. Ndizawucela mhlawumbi into yokuba awunakuyenza na into yobana ubhale i-question okanye uyizise nge-interpellation ukwenzela into yobana sikwazi ukuyiqwalasela kakuhle siyile ndlu yowiso-mthetho. Ngamafutshane ndicela into yobana uyiraise kakuhle kwelinye inqwanqwa xa sele sizawudilishana nayo ngokupheleleyo. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the issue that I'm highlighting is that it will be better for Honorable Bagubago Force to either use a question for oral reply or a written question or an interpellation so that it can be addressed thoroughly. And it's always better because here the honorable ministers affected as members of the executive in the particular cases may not necessarily have the opportunity because they're not speaking in this debate because those are departmental issues. So I've advised that the honorable member, Bagubago Force, use that approach. But of course, as this parliament, we enable that because we create the environment for interpellations, questions, and of course, both oral and written. Honorable Bagubago Force also indicated that which I have addressed, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that this kind of women's parliament ought not to be just about having an event, because then they become a talk show. And we don't want that. And I was quite particularly impressed when you said that to me, that Speaker, we're not just going to have these events because we want to be impactful. And I must say that you led, not just in South Africa, but in Africa. And there's also appetite because the CWP in this parliament has worked as a collective beyond party politics. And that is impressive because then you get the appetite and the drive from other legislators, but beyond this country, in the region, and of course, continentally and abroad. And I think that for me is very important. I appreciate that. So that will then respond to the issue that Honorable Bagubago Force have raised, issues that Honorable Bota, and of course, issues that Honorable Kondo have raised, that we must make sure that we follow through and make sure that these events do not just become a talk show. I also want to finally appreciate our interpreters. I mean, you see, they are women, and I've seen them in other forums as well, where in those fora beyond the Western Cape, they are invited nationally and beyond this country. And we must celebrate them and say that the work that they do, we appreciate. And of course, as this parliament, we continue to enjoy the work that Beryl Bota and Amira Baker do. We say thank you and we love you. Thank you. You're doing very well. Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Christians, and of course, Honorable Marais, Honorable Peter Marais, I cannot underscore their contribution because, as well as Honorable Brenkes and Honorable Mayor, because these must not be debates for women. These are debates for us as legislators and for us as legislators, that we must take these issues to the heart because women do not rape themselves. Women do not beat themselves, but women rape and kill women. So we need to say to ourselves, what can we do differently to stop the culture of patriarchy, the culture of abuse, and the culture of stigmatization in our society, that as men, we don't own women. Women are not our subjects, and we have no responsibility to prescribe how women should, one, behave, how they should dress, and how they should lead society. That is why it is important that as men here, we lead from the front and provide a very clear example that we will not tolerate any form of abuse towards women. That is why when you walk down the corridor here to the office of the Speaker, you can see, Deputy Speaker, we walk past that to our office. That kind of declaration that we signed in 2019 is the greatest thing that we've ever done, and that shall never be removed there. But we need to augment and see how do we practically, in heart and in mind, and in word and in deed, represent and live up and act in a way that will represent this august institution as an institution and the parliament of the people, starting with the members of staff of this parliament who are women and women members of this parliament. That is why the sexual harassment policy is a very clear example of that. And that is equally important that we look at why this parliament, in the sixth parliament, decided to ensure that we've got a maternity leave for members of parliament who are female. And I'm glad because that was led by the chief whip of this parliament. She was pregnant and she had to come and ask for approval here that I need to go and be a mother. No woman should ask to be a mother, should ask for a permission to be a mother. And that is the responsibility of us to lead by example. And that is a clear example, but there's a lot more that we need. I want to thank you once more and say bye, danke. And this parliament is proud to have such debates. I did not hear anyone attacking anyone here. And I will really be remiss if I do not say to Dr. Mayor, mentioning those women here may sound like a speech, but to me and to those women, I do know it made a significant impact to them. Some are in my constituency, Deputy Speaker, you know, you've met them. And it makes a huge difference because they know that this parliament is not for the elites, but this parliament is for everybody, including those who have nothing. Because parliament, it's a parliament of the people, and we have really lived up to that. Thank you very much. May God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Speaker. That basically brings us to the end of the Speaker's debate. That concludes the business for the day, and the Secretary will now end the meeting and members will be exited from the sitting. The House is adjourned.